One of the things we're going to talk about today that's super important is connecting that goal to your why. And then from time to time, reconnecting with that why. The first thing I really remember after that went off was I was hanging by my seatbelt, almost upside down, outside of the passenger side of the truck. Hey, do you want to keep your leg? And I thought, what a stupid question, right? Like, why would I not want to keep my leg? My why hit me really hard. And my why was to be able to walk down the aisle with my bride and dance with my bride on my wedding day. If you just stop and go, okay, achievement unlocked, right? Like I did it. If you just stop, then who knows what you're limiting yourself from there, what you're holding yourself back from. Had I not gone through the pain, I wouldn't have ever made it to the other side. The pain, the obstacle, which was pain in this instance, it was important for me to experience it to get to the other side. People will still take the easy way, even though they know that's probably going to contribute to their failure. Because they're so addicted to some behavior. I know you deserve for me to dance with you on our wedding day. But you know what? You're just not worth it. You're just not worth it for me to not take the easy. Imagine that. You pick that easy way, good chance you probably never arrive at your destination, but you're definitely going to miss some lessons along the way. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Rewired Experience Podcast. This is your host, Kyle Stoy. Glad you guys have jumped on today to get the next phase of our system that we use to get out of the suck. So this episode is called Phase Line Bravo. I changed these names a little bit, or I guess I've refined the names a little bit. So in the infantry, we'll use what's called phase lines. Phase lines are just a way for us to identify that we're at a certain point in the mission, to let our command know that, hey, we've arrived at this point. This is the current status of what we're doing, right? And so great way for us to break down and to stay with that theme that I've been applying to this entire structure. And that is just some of those principles within patrolling that the infantry uses for planning and execution of missions. And obviously for me, it's super helpful. I hope it's helpful for you. It's fun. But in today's episode, Phase Line Bravo, Reshoot Your Azimuth, we're going to deep dive into a crucial part of this journey. And it's really my favorite part because it's really where you start to decide what the action is that's going to get you out of the suck. So the best way to look at this is take a look at your cardinal direction, which is what an azimuth is. An azimuth is your cardinal direction. We use that in land navigation, old school land navigation, right? We're not talking about GPS here. We're talking about actually shooting an azimuth, which is determining a cardinal direction in degrees with a compass, right? So which direction on the map you're supposed to go. That's what an azimuth is. You really you look through an eyepiece, almost like you're aiming at a point, and you're going to determine the cardinal direction of that point in degrees, and then you'll move towards that point. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. And what we're going to talk about is how do I apply this principle once I've been through that observation phase, that orientation phase of drinking water. I got my mind right. I got my body right. What's the next step? That next step is determining what direction you're going to go. And this is really easiest to define as goal setting. And so the one thing I want to say is that along with goal setting, one of the things we're going to talk about today that's super important is connecting that goal to your why. And then from time to time, reconnecting with that why. So with that, I'm going to go into a story a little bit about kind of one of the points where I had to take a knee and drink water, reshoot my azimuth and Charlie Mike. Luckily, I was connected to a powerful why. And that powerful why is what drove me to a goal that a lot of people told me will could be impossible or not attainable. And so in 2011, when I was on my deployment in Afghanistan, we were on a combat mission and we hit an IED. Our truck hit an IED, about 180 pounds of military grade explosive exploded underneath my truck. And when this happened, I just remember everything went into slow motion. And I remember looking like straight up in the sky, and the Blue Force Tracker computer, it's this metal encased computer, it broke off in the explosion and hit me in the chin, broke my jaw. At that point, I really didn't know that my jaw had been broken. And then the impact of the explosion shattered my foot. It completely broke my heel off my foot. And it was excruciatingly painful. If you know anything about orthopedic breaks, apparently that's one of the most painful orthopedic breaks that you can experience, is to break your heel off of your foot. And also fractured my tailbone and just a lot of other things, concussive injuries and things like that happened. The first thing I really remember after that went off was I was hanging by my seatbelt, almost upside down, outside of the passenger side of the truck. And my team was pulling my driver out, who had also been injured. And I just remember the smell of diesel fuel, and diesel was running down my face, or what I thought was diesel fuel. I think realistically looking back, it could have been sweat. It could have been anything. I could just smell the diesel. And they subsequently got me out, ended up medevacing me. And when I arrived at the hospital there in Afghanistan, Bagram, they really didn't tell me a whole lot about my injury. Put me on a plane to Longstuhl Air Force Base in Germany. When I was in Germany, I remember waking up and a doctor came in and said, "Hey, do you want to keep your leg?" And I thought, what a stupid question, right? Like, why would I not want to keep my leg? And I don't know, I think I said something smart like that. I really don't remember the details of it, but he ended up explaining. He was like, "Look, you're a limb salvage. We fully expect that you'll probably be back in 18 months for an elective amputation, because this injury is so severe that the recovery is so painful and long and arduous. And typically people just don't do it. And you're probably never going to, if you keep it, you're probably never going to walk normally again. You're dang sure never going to run again. And you're just always going to have a lot of pain and a lot of difficulty." And I think it was his way of saying, "Hey, you're going to be crippled for the rest of your life, and one way or another. So you can do this elective amputation, or you can go ahead and keep your leg." And I was engaged at the time to my now wife, and my why hit me really hard. And my why was to be able to walk down the aisle with my bride and dance with my bride on my wedding day. I'd been married before, but I never really had like a traditional wedding in that sense. And what we had planned was going to be different than what I had experienced before. And it motivated me, right? I was emotionally connected to it in such a way that there was just nothing that anybody was going to say or do to convince me that it wasn't possible. And I share that piece of it. This is what I want you to take away from it, is when we were in the drink water episode, I told you guys that a lot of times people will muddy your water or dirty your water. You're trying to take in that pure water, and there's other people telling you what they think's possible, right? Because they don't know how powerful your why is. And this is what pushed me. This is what drove me to make this decision that they told me may not be the best decision, right? But I wasn't going to let their perceived limitations of what I was capable of cloud my own understanding of what I knew I was capable of. And so a long road to recovery, ended up in the hospital, inpatient for almost 3 months, I think, outpatient for another 3 months. So probably 6 months inpatient, outpatient, tons of recovery. But as fortune would have it, I would say I was very blessed in my mind the way it came together, I was given the option to be one of 200 kind of test subjects for a program that gave me almost a version of a prosthetic, except they didn't have to chop your leg off essentially or cut your leg off to utilize it. It was a dynamic orthosis. And within a few months after returning home, I went back, got fitted for this orthosis, and literally went from being in a wheelchair and being on crutches, walking into that clinic on crutches, putting on this device and running. I ran down the hall of the clinic. And so in my mind, I was like, achievement unlocked, right? There's no way at this point I don't walk down the aisle with my bride and dance with my bride on my wedding day. And I did that. I absolutely did that. But there was something that happened after that point. I didn't reshoot my azimuth. And what I mean by that is I didn't redetermine another cardinal direction. So I got to an objective rally point, which we talked about in the previous episodes, which is a point to where you can reassess, right? And reshoot that azimuth, redetermine that next goal or that next checkpoint, if you will, so that you know where you're going from there. Because if you just stop and go, okay, achievement unlocked, right? Like I did it. If you just stop, then who knows what you're limiting yourself from there, what you're holding yourself back from there. And at that point, once I had already proved everybody wrong, the doctors and everybody told me that I wasn't going to achieve that, I lost a little bit of my way because I didn't reshoot my azimuth, right? So you really have to connect yourself to that why, first of all, because the why is what put me through all that pain. And a lot of times, or I say, the why is what kept me going through that pain. And it kept me connected emotionally to why I was pushing through the pain. So going back to that land navigation metaphor, the example, I remember going through the STAR course in infantry training, and it's the land navigation course that they use for all the special forces. It's the navigation course that you have to pass to get to the next level of almost any specialized unit or leadership training school. It's the toughest land navigation course inside probably the United States. I don't know, outside of CONUS, I know that the jungle course is really tough. And this was back when I was serving, or when I went through training. But I can remember you shoot an azimuth in land navigation, and I was on that course, and they told us, they were like, if you guys run the road, meaning if you use the road to cheat and find your point, if we see you running the road, we're going to kick you out. And when you shoot your azimuth, there's all kinds of obstacles. There's trees, obviously, thick brush, rivers, creeks, swamps, tall mountains or hills or whatever. So these obstacles present themselves on your azimuth. So you've got this straight line that you're trying to get to from point A to point B to get there. And there's all these obstacles in the way. So your mind's like, how do I get around these obstacles? For instance, do I want to bust this really thick brush and get all scraped up? Sometimes the answer is yes. There's no reason for me to try to go around this thing because these events are timed. So I had a certain amount of time that I had to find these points in land navigation. And if I tried to go around every obstacle, there's no way I'm going to make my time back. There's just no way I'm going to do it. And that's true in this metaphor, right? That's true in what I'm talking about. Had I not gone through the pain, I wouldn't have ever made it to the other side. The pain, the obstacle, which was pain in this instance, it was important for me to experience it to get to the other side. And that to me is what Reshoot Your Azimuth is all about. It's determining that cardinal direction, determining that goal, and then going through all the obstacles, navigating those obstacles to get there in a timeline that you've decided works for you, right? Now, I had some help along the way, and I think that tends to happen when you're focused with a powerful why on your next goal. I talked a little bit about how I ran into a goal fatigue. And after I hit that goal, I just, even though I had set some other tiny goals, like I ran like a 5K leg of a marathon. And then after that, everything was just so painful. And I couldn't reconnect to a powerful why beyond that. And it took me forever to reconnect to a powerful enough why to endure the pain. And what it really came down to at that point was just quality of life and being a good father to my younger children and a good grandfather to the grandkids that I was going to have, that I have now, but at the time was going to have, didn't know. And making sure that I stayed connected to that so that I could continue to improve on my life. And so in that process, I'm constantly reshooting my azimuth and reconnecting a why to that cardinal direction. It blows me away every time somebody avoids these painful obstacles, right? Like even, like I was saying in that land navigation course, like people still took the easy way and got kicked out because they'd follow the road. They told them, don't follow the road, and they still got kicked out of the course because they still picked the easy way. And it always blows me away how often people will still take the easy way, even though they know that's probably going to contribute to their failure because they're so addicted to some behavior. Food's a great example. Working in health and wellness, people that are so addicted to certain kinds of foods, you can show them that it's poisonous and that how their body responds to it, and they will still crave it. And I know that's just how you connect typical addiction, right? Like that is addiction. That is what addiction is. But it still blows me away that the easy way is more important than their why. So that's why defining your why is so important, because you've got to tell yourself that the easy way, if you choose the easy way, you need to think about your why. And if your why is a person, imagine my wife, if I would have looked my, at the time, fiance in the eyes and said, babe, I know you deserve for me to walk down the aisle on our wedding day with you and not be on crutches or in a wheelchair or something. I know you deserve for me to dance with you on our wedding day. But you know what? You're just not worth it. You're just not worth it for me to not take these. Imagine that. There's just no way, if you're connected to a powerful why and you hold yourself accountable in that way, that you don't push through it, that you don't go through that hard stuff, that obstacle that's in your way to get to it. Here's what I want you to take away today. Obviously, I want you to connect deeply with your why, because that's as important as your azimuth, as important as your cardinal direction. But remember, when you reach one goal, you've got to reshoot your azimuth. So just think of it as that objective rally point, that point where you're reassessing, you're dropping gear you don't need, you're getting gear together you do need, you're refining your plan with the people that are involved in that plan with you, and then you're pushing on to the objective. In that sense, you're taking a knee, you're drinking water, you're reshooting your azimuth to get ready to Charlie Mike to that next goal. Because once you embrace those obstacles and bust the brush, so to speak, go through that swamp, you're going to be stronger and more prepared to reshoot your azimuth and move forward again. If you pick that easy way, good chance you probably never arrive at your destination, but you're definitely going to miss some lessons along the way that you should have gotten had you not taken the easy way around or around those obstacles. right? So that's really all I've got today. And I have to say, from a standpoint of an emotional connection, this is one of my favorite phase lines in the system, right? Reshoot your azimuth. Once you've changed your perspective, you've taken care of yourself so that you can take care of others, so that you can be totally focused on redetermining that next goal, reshooting your azimuth, getting to that next objective or that next objective rally point where you can shoot that very next objective and conquer the mission. The personal connection to that, for me, that whole concept is powerful. And honestly, I think it's something that I've just really put together probably in the last 12 to 18 months or so. Need that association. And I'm so grateful that I did. And I hope that it impacts you in the same way. Thanks for tuning in to the Rewired Experience. Next, we'll talk about phase line Charlie. So stay the course, because it's going to be time to Charlie Mike and take action. After you've determined that cardinal direction, after you've decided to go, now it's time to go. I'm going to leave you with a little thought as we close this thing out. Ponder it for me, message it to me, text it to me, DM me, whatever. But here's your question. There's 3 frogs on a lily pad. 2 frogs decide to jump off. How many frogs are on the lily pad? That's what I'm going to leave you with. You guys have a wonderful week, and I'm super pumped up to get that next episode out to you guys really soon. So, man, take a knee, drink water, reshoot your azimuth, and Charlie Mike.